have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Oswald, and you're listening.
This is Mr. Hammer, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I am your humble host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the City of Angels, where it happens to be 7 p.m. PT Pacific Time. Of course, we are an international show. Crossing the Atlantic Pond is my co-host, where he is staying awake just to do this show, and it's literally 3 a.m. No joke. As people always joke about that time, no. He is really 8 hours ahead for me because he's really in a studio in London. Now, as you know, if you've checked out social media, you know exactly what you're going to see. It's actually more of a continuation from last year, but we are focusing on two distinct things. But while I'm giving you some vague things, that's why I'm giving you some time to briefly check out social media outlets to see what we're talking about while I give you some brief news. You remember how I keep talking about that'd be really cool if somebody's got a Jurassic Park or some rich people up there figured out how. So I was just trying to see if it's possible. What I came upon is an article from 3 years ago where they found in Montana 40 million year old blood that was frozen in some plane in Mosquito, just like the movie Jurassic Park. However, that is not that is after the 66 million year ago supposed meteorite that hit Earth. But this is even cooler. This is an article from just a couple months ago. From the Daily Express in London, they found a T-Rex, a fossil of a T-Rex that was pregnant, and they think that they could successfully extract DNA from it. Now, the reason why the argument is made that it can't survive is that DNA has a half-life of about 562 years, approximately, which means in about 1.6 million years, it's gone. There's no trace of it whatsoever. So if you got something going back to 100 million years, you have to find a better source, such as freezing it. That's why it's easier to clone a woolly mammoth than it is to clone a dinosaur. So there's the argument. Now let's get on with tonight's show. Ready, everybody? Okay, so we have, of course, our two friends in Wisconsin. We have Kevin Malek and Jennifer Malek, who also are radio hosts themselves, paranormal researchers. And, of course, as we noted before the show, we're talking about the real sixth sense tonight. First, let's introduce Kevin Malek and Jennifer Malek. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Jennifer, you ready to rock it?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Right. How are you?
I'm doing great. And so this is what people have been asking for quite a long time. We want to know details of what it is that when you see dead people, is it kind of like the movie The Sixth Sense, where you're actually walking through a mall and you're seeing dead people walking around, they don't know they're dead?
Yeah, actually, it varies. I see people in public places that actually have spirits of their loved ones, whether they're family members or friends who have passed on, following them around. And there's been several rare occurrences in my teens when this would happen. It still actually happens on a daily basis, but I would sometimes have these spirits ask me why they're trying to get the attention of their mother or their father or their sister or their cousin or their best friend, and they're basically doing nothing short of waving their hands in front of their faces, and they're not being acknowledged.
You know what's gnarly is that happens in dreams a lot. Have you noticed? Has anyone noticed out there listening, or have you, Jennifer or Kevin, noticed that in your dream you're trying to scream or you're trying to run, but particularly like you just said, you're trying to get someone's attention. No matter what you do, they're not responding. So that's what triggered in my head. Now, you said this started in your teen years?
Well, with my psychic abilities, all the females in my family were very much psychic. So I actually grew up around the spirit world. Like, I literally had spirits in my childhood home.
Now, have any of the spirits tried to harm anybody, or have they appeared in any gruesome manner or anything like that?
I've had my instances where, because I'm also the resident demonologist for our paranormal society, I've actually had my run-ins with demonic entities while trying to help people, and that's usually been never pleasant for me. So.
Yeah. Now, what I've heard from other people that have this ability, that they actually go to some courses that are taught by other, they don't call themselves demonologists, but spirit releasers or something like that, where they're taught of how to release these people and let them go rather than be trapped here on Earth. Have you ever helped a spirit do that?
Yeah, I've actually, last year, I helped the spirit of a little boy cross over because he didn't know that he was dead.
Is that what the case usually is that they don't know they're dead or they don't accept it?
Yeah, actually it's both. You have a large percentage of them that they're kind of stuck in what I refer to as their death state, where if they died unexpectedly, if they tripped or they fell, or if they have a heart attack, or if something far more worse happens to them, like say murder,
yes,
they're not really going to realize that they're dead. They're going to be trying to retrace their steps and figure out what happened. And so because of that, they're causing their spirit self to be grounded to the earth plane.
Now, Kevin, you've been researching paranormal in general for a while. Have you had any experiences
with paranormal, yeah, I've in my life, I guess I had an out-of-body experience once when I was a child.
That is also something that can be taught. I know from several books, several authors that have
right.
been on the show.
In my case, I had fallen down a flight of steps.
Ooh.
And the next thing I remember, I was looking down at myself and my sisters and my mother around me.
So you could have been potentially dead for that time.
Yeah, potentially so. I guess I was knocked out of my body or something, But I remember very specifically and vividly looking down at them as they were trying to revive me and wake me up. And next thing I know, I open my eyes and that's it.
You're back in your body. Yeah, now see, Jennifer, that was essentially what you just described as one of those instances where, you died, so instantly, such as falling down the steps or murder, or that's the worst case, or a car accident where it's just instant, you're gone, right?
Right. It's that instant. And sometimes they don't realize that they're dead because, believe it or not, when you see these paranormal programs on TV, they always talk about the person passing on and seeing a light.
Mm-hmm.
That is not necessarily the case. I have come across plenty of spirits that I have actually helped cross over that did not know, who knew that they were dead, but did not know that there was a light. The light was not there for them. They couldn't find the light.
You want to hear an interesting story? This is something I never said on air. I was in a coma a couple years ago, and I was in there for 2 weeks. And I remember that I was on the beach on a boat, but there was no water. And the light, or the wind, as the wind grew stronger, there was more golden light, right? So it'd blow a little bit, then it would stop. And, the sun was out. I'm just saying you could feel like you're looking at your body and it's getting more golden. So I'm talking to somebody, having this long conversation. Then I finally say to him, didn't you die in 1988? Because he was, one of my parents' friends. He said, yes, I did. And boom, the light the wind picked up immensely. Everything got so blinding, the light around me. Next thing I know, I'm awake. Obviously I didn't sense 2 weeks go by. It was more like, it felt like maybe 20 minutes, an hour, the conversation. But that was the closest thing I've ever experienced to seeing the so-called light. Have you heard anything like that? The wind being the light?
No, I've never heard of it. That's actually something that's pretty rare.
You know what? I have heard that there's a couple cases partially where people pass on and come back, where they reported that when they were at one point walking down a tunnel towards their loved ones or whatever, that things were flying past them really fast. And the 2 times I read about this phenomenon happening to these people, they both felt that these things were prayers.
Really? That were flying past them, you mean?
Yes.
Interesting. And that would make sense when you talk about the Maharishi effect when I was I've been saying that for quite some time, despite who the guest has been, where they did that study in Washington, D.C., where each unit of prayer / meditation is exponential. So the more people that are praying on that same item or same problem, whatever it be, you're going to get a bigger force of it. Did you read anything about that?
Well, that certainly makes sense. I mean, that's what I believe. I do believe in that, and I'm also aware of cases. One case in particular happened here in Wisconsin, where there was a little girl who had a serious cancer, and the whole congregation had been praying for this child. And when there was a point where the doctors all of a sudden couldn't find the cancer anymore.
Uh-huh.
Like it just mysteriously vanished right before operation. And they felt that it was because they were holding services
And praying for that.
and praying, and so when large groups of people pray. I mean, you even find that theme in the Bible. You find it in the even Revelation says, if everyone at the end times turns to God and prays, that He would stop whatever horror would come along. If we did that, if we prayed, the power of prayer is that strong.
Now, Jennifer, have you seen anything when you're seeing these dead people that have not crossed over? Do you see any prayers going their way at all?
No, I have actually heard from these particular spirits that I have crossed over that that the ones that know that they're dead can actually hear their loved ones praying for them.
Really? So,
yeah.
Now here's another question that I guess is sort of related. What's the oldest spirit that you've seen trapped here? I guess you could sort of tell by their clothing or what they're wearing based on the era.
Right. My oldest spirit, I would have to say, and it's really weird because we have a Walmart up here in Rhinelander, and right where their back parking lot property ends, where their fence is, there's a cemetery back there.
I have a question here. I got to read it because it's addressed to both of you, so one of you take it at each of a time. Bethany Simmons in Chicago, Illinois wants to know if Jennifer or Kevin has ever been abducted by an alien or seen UFOs. Who wants to go first? Jennifer?
Yeah, I can actually say no, I have not.
You haven't seen a UFO either?
Oh, I have seen UFOs, yes. I have had 2 experiences in the past 5 months.
Can you talk about them real quick before
the first one that I saw, I was actually talking to another member of our society. He literally lives up the street from us. He was outside smoking a cigarette with his roommate, and he saw this white and red light. And what caught his attention, the way it was moving. It had to be maybe between 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And there were no planes out. There were no helicopters. This thing was not making any noise. He called me and told me about it on the phone. He had just saw a set of lights come in. He said they would kind of blink on and off. They would disappear, then come back. And so I went outside, and as I was talking to him, I looked up overhead over our roof, of the top of our roof, and I actually saw a black triangle, which is what they call a TR3B.
Yes, I'm glad you actually noticed that TR3B, because there's a lot of speculation that that's actually our new stealth program, or our new secret or spy reconnaissance plane, whatever you want to call it. So the debate is who's piloting it. Obviously there are a lot of people who have already pointed out to the fact that it's violating our known laws of physics. Then it may have properties that were not originated from here, or ideas that may have not come from this earth, hence that would make them extraterrestrial, non-terrestrial. I'm going to pose the same question to Kevin. Kevin, have both of you seen a UFO or have been abducted, or both?
Okay, yeah, I've never been abducted to my knowledge. I have had what I call 3 primary UFO experiences in my life. They were all separate and apart from each other, and they were all of different kinds of UFOs, I should say. Like, it wasn't like the same kind of craft each time. And they're all, like I said, different from each other. One of the three was a triangle, like you guys are talking about, what people call the TR-3B. I was driving down a highway, going 55, and something told me to look over my left shoulder, and what's kind of referred to as the blind spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I look over and I see this thing flying above the tree line, and I'm watching this. I'm like, man, look, that's like flying, at the same speed I'm going.
So
and
essentially, they called at you to look at that. I mean, your sixth sense or something in your body was told to
Yes.
look there, and you wouldn't have looked there normally. So obviously,
I never would, while you're driving like that, just randomly look over my left shoulder,
Correct.
back behind me. And so I noticed this, and I'm like, it's going the same speed I'm going. It's almost like it doesn't want to pass me up. And I think, it's funny because my turn is coming up here, and it's a left turn,
mm-hmm.
and it's on the left-hand side of the road. So when my turn came up, I made my turn, and I went down a little bit, and I stopped the car, judging just about where I figured the thing would come out. And I grabbed my flashlight because it was dusk out.
Uh-huh.
And just as I get the flashlight and get out of the car, it comes over the treetops. And as it comes over, I turn the flashlight on and start jumping up and down. Say, I can see you, I can see you. Not that I would recommend anyone ever do this. And, I've often thought, I wonder why I even did that, but that's what I did. And it stopped, and it went back the way it came.
I wonder if was there missing time at all, because we've had people on this show, they're really down to earth, straightforward, families, they're not loose marbles in their head, that were talked about. Two people in particular talked about being taken while on board a jumbo jet with other passengers, and I thought that was amazing. And then of course you also hear the stories of their people that are flying, and then their plane just jumps 3/4 of their destination, and they end up where they're supposed to be a lot sooner with most of their fuel still there.
Sure.
Bizarre phenomenon. Keep going.
No, I was going to say that's an interesting question. As a ufologist, I know the symptoms and signs to generally look for in abduction cases.
Yes.
And thankfully I don't appear to suffer from any of them. So I guess I'm fortunate. I am fortunate. I can tell you that.
Yeah, me too. I can say that too, because I am, even though it'd probably be buried in my subconscious, I'm sure in dreams or something it would come out. Some portions of it enough to where it would scare me enough to go to figure it out. But I was studying this long enough too, and knowing the symptoms. Unfortunately, I don't exhibit any of those as well. Before I get to some more American questions here, let's go across the Atlantic pond and give it to Johnny.
Well, the first question's coming in from Christina in Valencia in Spain, and she's asking Jennifer, Madeleine McCann, a young British girl missing in Spain, do you know what happened to her? Is she alive or dead? And the second question...
Yes, I remember that girl.
And the second question is from Peter in Swansea on Facebook, and he's asking, how do you receive information about your work with... how do you receive information about people you're working with directly and indirectly?
Well, if the answer for the first question is, I'm not getting any general impressions that she's deceased, so she may be very well alive.
Kidnapped and probably lived in under someone else, yeah.
Right, it's a possibility. I don't get any immediate impressions connected with her death. I think she's just a missing case right now.
And what was the other question you had, Johnny?
How do you receive information about people you're working with directly and indirectly?
Okay. I usually ask my guardian angels or my spirit guides. When somebody calls me for any kind of information as regards to they're having some kind of a haunting they think may be negative, what can I do to protect myself? And anybody but asks me things with psychic work, I usually meditate before. I go into my meditation and I ask to work I ask God. I ask to work through God, pretty much. I ask if He could send His Son Jesus to help me. If my spirit guides know any information, they'll give it to me automatically. If that helps at all.
Now, let me ask some of these American questions that have been sitting here. I think they were related. They don't say who they're to, but obviously I'm assuming this first one is for you. Oh, that's for Jennifer. Okay, Shorty in, is it Macon, Macon, Georgia, wants to know if Jennifer is like a prophet and gets future visions.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a prophet. I do get my visions and I do get my premonitions. I try not to have a label for what abilities I have because I have so many crammed into one. I know whenever we do anything paranormal or promote as far as our radio show or we do any venues with on health and wellness or metaphysics fairs, they usually ask you to pick a title, so I don't necessarily see myself as a prophet. I see myself as a messenger from the divine.
And now this is also from here in the Pacific coast or Pacific region right here in my state. Monica in El Cajon wants to know if Jennifer ever gets readings or is she too scared to reveal. That's an interesting question.
No. Whenever I do readings, I am very open with my clients. I do not hold any information back, no matter how emotional the readings tend to get, because the people that I read, I have a lot of clientele out there, and they're generally happy with my reading, but they also know, and I explain this to new people that come to me, that I don't hold anything back. And if there are things that are coming up in my reading that you should be telling me, but you're not, I'm going to bring it up because it's showing up in the card, so it needs to come out.
Can I add on to here?
Absolutely.
I just want to clarify that when she says that, she's talking about her personal clients and her personal readings.
Mm-hmm.
When we work as a paranormal unit, as a society for the NWPS, we do have a protocol, and that is that when the mediums do their psychic walk at the beginning of the preliminary, that they keep the information to themselves and that they document it either by a voice recorder or they write it down or, whichever way they wish, they can videotape it, whatever they want to do to document it. And then because it's best that we talk about it as a group, and the mediums in this case or in that case are there to give us leads, and if they pick up anything, and after the preliminary is done, if we can as a team discuss their findings and then go validate stuff and see if we can come up with validation. When we get that, then we can offer that to the client as actual, good information, opposed to, and this keeps any, because there are times where a medium could pick up something that's really traumatic or, floating bloody head or who knows what, as they're doing a walk, and it could scare the hell out of the client. And the one thing we must not do is make the situation worse for them. So if we got a case where a client is called, and it's not just for a specific reading with Jenny, but they have a problem in their home and they need it investigated with the team, then at that part, the mediums are just one arm of several spokes on the wheel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So, and that's why we put them protocols in place, so that way, so it stays well in balance.
I actually would not want to know, about some of the spirits that are probably around me. I do, but I'd be scared to unlock that part of the brain, and part of me does. You have that curiosity aspect. It's like, show me everything. Then you have that other aspect. It's like, can I peek behind the curtain and then close it back up and go on with life? Anyhow, let's go across the Atlantic pond again and go to Johnny before I come back to America. Johnny, what do you got?
Well, we got Stuart in Edinburgh in Scotland on Facebook, and he's asking, can you tell us anything from anyone who might be trying to contact us here tonight? And he also asks, how can you get in touch with our own guardians and spirit guides?
Jennifer?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
To get in touch with any of your spirit guide or your guardian angels, all you literally have to do is through prayer, you can ask them. You can ask them through signs. If you're not sure you're going to get them while you're awake, you can actually ask for them before you go to sleep at night. If you have a question about somebody or about something going on in your life or a situation or an object that you bought or a family member's health that you're questioning, how long is Aunt Sue going to be around for, kind of thing. You ask that question and you ask them to give you answers. And if you're the type of person that can remember your dreams, you'll get your answers through your dreams.
Hey, it's really interesting you say that, because I've read quite a lot that in order to remember your dreams, when you wake up, first thing you have to do is stay as still as you can. Don't move your body. You really should have a digital voice recorder, right by you, where you don't have to do very much to activate it, and then just try to retrace every detail of your dream, and then later transcribe it, a month later, a week later. And then once you do that long enough, you're going to start realizing that a lot of what you've dreamt correlates with the physical world, or is happening, or about to happen, or has happened. So you might look back at your transcripts of something that you wrote down 2 months ago and realize that happened a week ago. Anyhow, I thought that was really interesting. We got Dan the Man on the line with us. Dan, welcome on.
Hi. How you doing, Dr. J?
I'm rocking. I
right,
got your
man.
message too earlier. I apologize for not getting back to that.
Oh, no
Trying to
problem,
open
man.
that darn app.
That's okay. She actually answered that question. But as far as spirit guides, I wanted to give Jennifer a little cultural perspective. See, I'm a blood brother to the Blackfoot, and through our training and through my own experience of actually seeing ancestors, I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have my ancestors around me. I live and I breathe them. We don't see the world as a heaven and something else. This is our happy hunting ground. So I was wondering if you've experienced that, where not all spirits want to move on.
Yes. Actually, yes. I have actually, in my 38 years on this earth, I have had maybe 4 spirits that were well aware of the fact that they had passed on. They knew how they died, and they did not want to stay. 2 of the 4 were too attached to the home that they lived in at the time and their families.
So they literally have stayed on since then, or were they waiting for their... I guess that could potentially turn into what you guys would call a poltergeist, right? If it was something that stayed to a home, an actual piece of property.
I think what I'm thinking of is more or less help through the love of our ancestors, rather than turning into something maleficent or abnormally negative.
Right. It's this thing when we pass away, we each have free will. So we have the option to whether we can go and cross over and stay at peace, or we can transition and come back. Like I said before, I've had 4 people who they were just too attached to their homes here. They were too attached to their families. They were too attached. I had this one spirit that I tried with her so many times, but she was attached to money.
Ooh, that's an evil thing too. I would think so. Yeah.
Sorry, it's John in London again. I just wanted to clarify something. What you're saying is that after death, the soul still has control of choice. Is that right?
Yes, we all have free will. God has given us, or whoever we believe in has given us free will.
And if I can add, there are also reasons why spirits wouldn't want to cross over. If they're afraid of judgment, might be one. If they're waiting for a loved one, and they want to cross over together, that may be one.
But when you say crossing over, is that mean that they're in some sort of limbo?
Well, it's
what
like,
is the void?
okay, here's a prominent theory, okay, that, okay, when we die, okay, a ghost is a human entity that has died but has not crossed over, does not, go in the light, the tunnel, heaven, whatever you would call it, okay, and because of that, they are grounded to where they're at. A spirit is somebody who has crossed over, healed up because they've been to heaven, and then have come back for a specific reason. They're not grounded to one spot, and they can go and come and go as they choose. So when we talk about entities, and again, that's the most that's a theory you're going to find in parapsychology.
Now, here's Dan. By all means, stay on. Let me ask this question it's got to be from across the world, and then I'm going to ask this American question. Patel in Mumbai, I said that properly, right? India, wants to know if you know about how the Vedas talk about how we can choose our reincarnation, or picking out our parents and who we want to be born into.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't dealt with any souls that have gone through that, but yeah. It's very real, and I have heard of cases where people have actually done that.
Now, this is here back in the States, probably closer to you actually, Austin, Texas. Ron wants to know how you can train for doing the kind of work you do.
Oh, okay. There are all kinds of ways you can train. One of the things I recommend is study and research. If there's a specific topic, like say you wanted to cover telepathy, is where you come with the ability to actually communicate with the person using your mind, or clairaudiency, when you want to train your hearing to be better, to hear at a more higher vibrational frequency, so that you can actually hear spirits on this earth plane or what have you. Research is a really, really good way to do it. There are shops that you could do if you find any new age metaphysical shops that you can go to that may give classes on Reiki circles, chakra realignment and opening, anything that you can think of. These would actually be really, really good tools to train yourself and your abilities. And it also helps to have somebody to practice with you.
A mentor is always a good idea, no matter what you're...
Well, not just necessarily just a mentor, but someone, if they're trying some kind of a task, like I was just saying with the telepathy or the...
Sure.
You want to have somebody that's there with you because, one, they're going to want to know, and two, they can either record or transcribe your experiences and validate them later on.
Yeah.
We got Sophie on Facebook in Manchester in England. She's asking, why do people reincarnate back here? Are they a glutton for punishment?
I think, like I said, it comes back to the whole free will. Our souls have free will. Some may actually have chosen to reincarnate because they may have memories of their previous incarnations that they missed, or they may have something with their previous reincarnation that they felt they didn't get the chance to complete or work on and fix. So if they know that they can reincarnate into another life, that would be some of the ways and some of the reasons why they might want to come back.
There's kind of this is kind of how I view it. I mean, and this is just a personal belief of mine. I think we have a higher self in a place we would call heaven. And that higher self remembers all of our past lives. And every so often we choose to live again in this dimension of existence for whatever reasons. And when we do, then we reincarnate, have our life. Of course, we don't remember any of our past lives while we're living that life. But then, and at that point when we pass, instead of just instantly reincarnating without any thought, or we would cross back over, go back to our higher self again, maybe realign with our families and with God and everything, and then reincarnate after that. That's just a personal belief I have.
You know, when I asked you about poltergeists earlier, I think let's expand on that.
Are you talking about psychic kinetic energy? Or
Yeah.
are you talking? Okay, right.
In the movie Sixth Sense, there was a boy, and he wasn't able to shut out what he kept seeing. And I wanted to know, how do you control what you allow yourself to see?
I am spiritually protected, so a lot of who and what I see that comes at me, I tend to take it in bits and pieces as it comes out, instead of getting everything at me at once. Because when you're spiritually open as I am, you don't want to get bombarded with all these images, places, people, objects, and energy at the same time. Because then that's in a sense that's gonna cause your abilities to kind of go haywire in a sense, because it's kind of like extrasensory overload.
Yeah, and I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because I was reading, again, just recently. I'm glad you also brought up the fact of research being something important, because I'm always trying to research basically everything that I'm curious about, whether it be psychology or demonology or you name it. And it basically was talking about that if you don't dream, you're overloading your brain. Essentially, by the time you're going to sleep, you're so toxified in your brain. If you don't have that release, that psychological release in a dream, you're going to wake up and you're just going to continue to not be okay. And I could attest to that, because I don't dream very often. And, it's much more relaxing and very different feeling when you finally unload that. It's like a big load off your shoulders. I want to go back to what you were, poltergeist. Let's go back to the actual basic, the definition. Kevin, what is a poltergeist?
Well, when we talk about poltergeist, means noisy ghost. That's a German word for noisy ghost.
Okay.
But generally today in the paranormal, when we talk about poltergeist, what most people are referring to is psychic kinetic activity. And that is when a person is creating the paranormal phenomena with their mind. And they're doing it in a way they don't realize. It's not controlled. And they say that usually women, teenagers, young female women, or women in their change of life are the primary, they feel like them two, mostly women, and mostly in them times when their hormones are changing or not as stable, should I say, that their emotions, they go through emotion overloads, and they kind of manifest sometimes in bizarre things like stuff moving around the house, or knockings on the wall, or that kind of stuff.
Well, like that. What about that famous case in Indiana, where this woman, police came over, Child Protective Services were called on her. I don't know if it was, I think it was her daughter, or maybe it was possibly her son, in front of police and Child Protective Services, was sitting on a chair, and the chair literally went up against the wall, and this child was sitting kind of like a movie set, like you're looking at the wall, and there's a chair stuck to it with the child. And then apparently they took this child to the hospital, and same bizarre stuff is happening all around it. And it, probably, like you said, unbeknownst to the child, he was causing it, or she was causing it, and affecting wherever this child was going. And I believe that's the actual house was sold to, I know it was sold, I believe the person who bought it was some rock star or something. I'd have to find it exactly. But are you familiar with this case? There's famous photo from TMZ when they went to that house. They even took a picture, and in the window you see a profile, a black profile of head and neck and arm, with a kind of like waving. Do you know what I'm talking about? They call it the most haunted house in Indiana.
Yes, actually, that was a demonic case. That actually turned out to be a demonic haunting.
Ooh.
Because I guess they found out at some point that there was literally a portal to hell in the home of this basement.
That's right. Yes, you're definitely on the right case. So.
And Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures had bought the house. And from what I've seen and read on Facebook, he actually had the house no longer up.
He got rid of it, you're saying?
Yeah, he had it destroyed. He got rid of it.
Now, let's talk about demonic. Well, I guess I'll ask Johnny. Johnny's got something to ask first, but then I want to talk about demons in general and demonology. But go ahead, Johnny.
I wanted to ask Jennifer again, demonic possession. How do people become possessed, and what can we do to protect ourselves from this kind of attack?
Okay.
And I'm actually asking the opposite. How do you invite demons to you?
Okay. I'd like to kind of answer this in one shot here. For anybody to come across any kind of demonic activity. Now, as we know, demonic haunts are rare. They're seriously rare. And for them to occur, there's usually something done as some kind of an open invitation. It could be somebody had the use of a Ouija board and did maybe a session or two and then got hooked and just kept doing it and letting this particular entity in the home shortly after. You know, you have people out there that practice satanic rituals and do black magic and call these things out. What a lot of people don't know, and it's in my religious background as far as me being Catholic and Roman Catholic, I was taught whenever you're dealing with something demonic, even if it's just research, you never want to write down or say the name of this particular entity. And the reason for that is because you're giving these things attention, you're giving these things power, and sooner or later, they're going to take you up on your little invitation or the fact that they're being praised in a sense, and they're going to come through. There are people that have gone on paranormal investigations using dowsing rods in cemeteries and have gotten demonically possessed over it. As a matter of fact, it's sometime this month, and Kevin sent me the article on my Medium page on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had used a Ouija board at a very well-known haunted home and got demonically possessed after the session was over.
Marcy in Panama City wants to know if you have a rosary for keeping demons away.
Yes, actually I do. I have a gold rosary. What's different about mine, I get it from two very dear friends of mine and Kevin, who are actually when it comes to my continual studies in demonology. She actually has a page on Etsy where you can buy these rosaries. She makes any different kinds, which she has on there. If you don't like, you can request. She can find something for you. You can even send her the stuff and she'll make it. But mine's different in the sense because it's got, like I said, it's gold. On the back of the cross is the St. Benedict medal, and it's got the prayer of St. Benedict, or it's got the exorcism transcribed into the back of the medal. And then the beads where you would count in between are actually St. Benedict medals.
Now,
and the angel that I have attached
mm-hmm.
The angel that I have attached to the side is St. Raphael the Archangel. And so every bead on this rosary literally has the prayer of exorcism woven into each bead.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Now, is there a regular protocol for, say, releasing, getting rid of the possession? What's that proper word that you just said?
Okay, there are two ways to do it, and it would be either Christian deliverance
mm-hmm.
or Roman rite of the Ritual Romanum, the Roman rite of exorcism. And
what was the first one again? You said Christian rite?
Yes.
Christian deliverance.
They have
Christian deliverance.
Deliverance is just a different word for. It basically means the same thing. You're delivering a person from an evil attachment. Some people will call exorcisms deliverances, or I should say, some people will call deliverances exorcisms when they're in fact really deliverances.
Right.
An exorcism is when a Roman Catholic person performs it.
Right, and the Roman Catholics have the only right to it over the church just because it's the Roman rite. And there's either the major or minor rite. Now, there's red tape with that and a lot of politics, so to speak, Because if you get a person that's like about to pretty much pass away as a result of the exorcism being so bad, the Vatican is kind of hurt in a sense, because you have to contact the priest. You have to contact a priest.
You mean possession instead of exorcism, right?
Right, possession. Sorry. Okay. You have to contact a priest.
Yes.
The priest will have to get permission from the archdiocese to come out and do an investigation. So they'll stay with you for so many hours or so many days and see if they report everything, if they catch anything of the claims that you're speaking of.
Mm-hmm.
If they do catch up with reports of demonic activity, they then have to go back to the archdiocese, present them with the evidence. Then they have to send it over to the Vatican. And the red tape comes in because it can take 6 months to a year for the Vatican to come back with a decision. When you have a person that's...
So they'll literally have them, being possessed that long and being haunted that long and hurt that long?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And when it comes to possession, it's not just like more than 1 to 5 demons. I mean, these things, there are so many of them. They're just...
Hundreds, I've heard, right?
There are hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds, more than hundreds even. There's like thousands of these things. Christian deliverance is something that they generally prefer to go for, because if a person is in such a high state of risk of death because their possession that they're going through is so severe, they can't wait for the Vatican to make that decision. So they'll actually have someone from the Christian church come out and perform a deliverance.
Which is very similar to an exorcism, but it's not identically an exorcism. But they're doing the same thing. And there's prayers and there's the whole ritual of what goes on when it happens.
And to answer that one question from Johnny earlier that the young woman had in chat, a good way to protect yourself from any kind of demonic attention, don't acknowledge them. Don't give them any power. Don't, like I said, writing, so much as writing down or saying a name could cause...
I'd like to ask you, Jennifer, it's John again in London. It's a personal question. Why do you think that there's dangers of dabbling with the Ouija boards? They're very great, and possession and invitations, you've described to be very sort of dangerous. But Walmart still finds it safe to sell it to kids, this Ouija board. What do you make of that?
Unfortunately, it's not really about what's in the kids' best interest or the adults' interest anymore with Ouija boards. It's just people looking to make money, to make bank off of these things.
Or like
they don't care that you're taking these boards home because you're paying that particular company or corporation for that board. So they figure once you bring the board home, you're on your own, and they're not responsible. And what scares me about Ouija boards today is now I think it's Hasbro. I want to say it's Hasbro.
Yeah, it is. Or it used to be Parker Brothers and Hasbro. You're right. It's scary, right?
Right. Oh, it's hard. It's really, really scary.
Yeah, they're marketing at Toys R Us and everything like that. Yeah.
And Hasbro has them out now where they're for ages from like 5 to 9 years old.
5 to 99, exactly. Yeah, I know because I got one from just for that reason, so I could prove to people that are like, no, it doesn't say that. It does say that. Ages 5 to 99.
Yeah, they come with the planchette, they come with the board, they even come with question cards that you can ask these demonic beings.
Interesting. The one that I said that I didn't have those, but I'm really interested to see that. But what did you call that one piece, that little triangle piece with the looking glass through it? Mine is glowing. It has a little batteries in there, and it glows like a blue light. So if it illuminates the board, if you're doing it in the light, it's crazy. I unfortunately can't say I've ever seen anything happen with it, but then again, there's not very many people that I know that want to try it with me. At the same time, I got an interesting book from the Psychic Eye that it was about the Ouija board, and there was a chapter, because I'm always tempted, and I want to try this by myself. It says, whatever you do not use it by yourself. So that's kind of kept me away, but of course you got that curiosity where it's like, someone come over and let's do it.
Well, I could say it from a historical perspective, a paranormal historical perspective, that a majority of the reports I hear about Ouija boards are negative. just in general. So consequently, I'm led to believe that there's a reason for this. And so when people ask me, do I think it's safe for them to use it, I would say not to. I would say because invitation is because when you're playing with the Ouija board and there's just the act of using the Ouija board.
That's an invitation, right?
Right. So, it's like I generally feel that if you want to talk to your angel, if you want, the only like Jennifer says, the only angels that you'll talk to on them things are the fallen ones. If you want to talk to your love and light angels, you don't need one of the boards to do that.
You don't. If you want to talk to your guardian angels up in heaven, you do it through prayer.
Or even, people if you have deceased ones and you don't know if they've passed or not, I mean, they'll hear us.
Right.
Talk to them.
Right. And one of the dangerous things with Ouija board or with the demonic in general, is they can take on the masquerade. They'll take on the form of anything they can to get us to let them in. It could be things such as simple as 15-year-old girl is sitting there playing it with their friends at a sleepover, and they use a Ouija board, and this entity comes through saying that it is a demonic being. It's not going to say it's a demonic being. It's going to come through and say it was like a 17 to 19-year-old boy that died in a car crash, and can you help me? And and it'll actually do it to the point where the person using the board just doesn't realize that they're being set up. They're being snared. So it's a trap. It's like, okay.
I noticed it lies a lot, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
And that would make sense, too, especially if you're a child, you're more gullible at the time. You're going to go with what it says. A lot of people have stories of using it when they were young. I remember using it with my friends when they were young. They always told different stories of what happened when I wasn't there, like their door slamming shut or the light switching off or the light bulb exploding, weird stuff that I've never actually experienced. I have 2 questions here before I turn it over across the Atlantic Pond. And I'm going to go in reverse order because one relates to the Ouija board and the other one is going back to what we were just talking about with being possession and just things in general. The first one, the second one, should I say, is, do you feel that the Ouija boards are portals to paranormal?
Yes, they are very much doorways. You are opening up doorways, and you are letting in things you have no idea what's coming through them.
Here's a one. Okay, I'll try to read this all here. Benjamin, who is a vicar I think that's right, in a church in a small town of Tucson called Tubac, wants to know if you are using any sacrament or holy water when you are doing your paranormal experiments or readings.
Yes, I do. Whenever I do readings or meditations or I advise people or I do little spiritual stuff to keep my abilities going. I always have holy water with me. I have that rosary that I just subscribed to you guys a while ago next to me.
Yeah.
I also have the prayer to St. Michael.
St. Michael the Archangel.
Yes, St. Michael the Archangel.
Now let's go across the Atlantic Pond. I know Johnny's got some stuff. What do you got, Johnny?
I wanted to know why most people just before a slow death always seem to say that they've seen a dead family member or a friend.
Ooh.
And also it says here, and when a friend has visited them, how do the dead know to return and meet someone close to crossing over?
That's a really, really good question, and I've always wondered that myself. I kind of look at it as God sending this spirit, this person's way. And that's actually been a prominent thing in my family. Whenever someone has passed away from my early childhood up till now, I will literally hear deathbed stories from certain family members who are here but not really here, and they'll actually talk about like their parents popping up or their uncle popping up, and they'll get very descriptive, and they'll sit there and they'll describe the family member or the family members to a T. And usually, in my case, I'm fortunate because before anybody in my family has ever passed away, and they had a specific loved one going to get them, to bring them over. This family member, be it male or female, whatever type of family member, would actually visit me. What I would call visitations is kind of like a dream. And it's where your six senses are all in use at the same time. So you could feel, hear, smell, see, touch everything in your dreams. I have actually been fortunate enough to get to see the family members that have come back to bring sick loved ones over. And it's really, really something. And it's just, each experience that I've had is very profound.
Johnny, keep going. I know you got a few more. And then I got a couple that I need to ask.
Well, I got Luke in Solihull in England, and he's asking, have you ever asked to speak to God or Jesus, and what did they say to you?
Yeah, actually, I recently did a crossover with that little boy. How long ago was it?
I couldn't say.
I want to say it was in the beginning half to middle of the year.
Yeah, it wasn't that long yet.
I had a little boy that would follow me around from place to place wherever we went. At one point, I thought maybe he had followed me home or us home from a paranormal investigation. He would never flat out come out so you could see him. I would actually sense him. And this one time I saw this little boy comes to me, and he's looking really scared. He had to be between 5 to 7 years old. And he was lost. He couldn't find the light, and he wanted help because it was cold, and it was dark where he was. And he didn't want to be here anymore. So it took me a couple of months to work with him to cross him over. So the day that happened, day gets here, and I ask him, I'm going to call on God, I'm going to call on Jesus, I'm going to ask St. Michael to come down and, help cross you over with your loved one. And then I had asked this little boy if he wanted anybody from his family in particular. And I named off his mother, his father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle. He kept telling me no. He would just nod his head no. So then I asked him, and I said, well, I need to help you. I understand that you need to go. I don't want you to be here any longer because you need to be at peace. You need to be at rest. And I said, what could I do to help you? Could you tell me of a particular family member, friend, or being that you would like
to see or get
to see? Mm-hmm. And I wasn't ready for this. He turns around and he looks at me and he goes, yes. He goes, I would like Jesus to come and get me.
Whoa.
So then I'm thinking to myself in my head, oh, this is a tall order. How am I going to pull this off?
Yeah.
Because this is the first time I've actually ever been asked to call on Jesus to cross an entity over, a ghost over.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did some prayers to God, and I asked, St. Michael the Archangel to speak to God, and I asked Jesus if he would come down and cross this little boy over because he wanted him in particular. He didn't want anything or anybody else to come and get him. Now, I didn't see him, okay? But within maybe, and it happened quick, it felt like it was minutes, hours. Jesus actually came down and crossed the spirit of this little boy over.
He did himself.
Yeah, I didn't get to see him. The presence that I felt was very peaceful, very calming. Words cannot describe what I felt. I have never felt this kind of peace and happiness and joy in my life.
When he came.
When he came. And he was getting ready to go, and he thanked me. And he turned out, now we were in the bedroom. I was in the bedroom, and the little boy appeared to me. And he said, thank you. And he reached out, his hand came out and took his hand. And I actually watched this little boy disappear through my bedroom wall.
That's actually crazy, and I can imagine the feeling of peace, and a lot of people talk about that, as Johnny was asking, from right before they die, or people that have, gone and come back that lived good lives, or you have the opposite, like Daniel Brinkley, who's come on the show, has talked about how prior to his near-death experience, he was a bully, he was a mean guy, and he had this horrible time when he was dead for, I think, 36 minutes, something like that. But when he came back, he realized he needed to be positive, and he's completely a different person. Very soft guy. Anyhow, here's an interesting question. Bonnie in Lynn, Massachusetts, we're going to the East Coast, northeast coast, wants to know how to get rid of a poltergeist who keeps making noises but never does anything bad, but just is annoying. How do I get rid of them? That's what she's saying.
Well, first you have to define what it is, I would suppose. I mean, when she says a poltergeist, I'm going to assume that she's talking about PK activity, but, I mean, is it that, or does she have an entity in her house? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes. That's actually something I wanted to ask about, too. What about when you hear about footsteps or something crossing? Because this is an interesting thing, and this is not something that I'm trying to make up. This is just phenomena that's been accepted for decades since we moved here. The whole family would be downstairs, and upstairs you just hear footsteps going from the master bedroom to across the house, back and forth. And this happens 24/7, 365 days a year, and for at least, we know, 40-some years minimum, because all the previous homeowners said the same thing. So obviously that, if it's footsteps, actual footsteps, as opposed to say a refrigerator, being toppled or, thrown to the ceiling, that would be more of an entity, I would think, right?
Right, that would be more of an entity. It could be that, you could have a spirit that's been there before long since you moved in there, and it's making noises and moving things and hiding things and just doing things to get your attention enough to say, hey, acknowledge me, I'm here too.
I never thought about that. That would be a good way, because that makes sense. And it also makes sense, too, when you have, say, an entity near you and you, show more fear, that these things would feed off of it. But when you don't care, they sort of seem to go away. I've heard that a lot, too. Did you put that in the same category with fear?
That would kind of go with, human spirits and inhuman spirits, really. The more fear that you show and the more they see that fear, they're going to use it to feed off of you. And they'll try and control you and your home environment. I've worked with people that have had human spirits trapped in the house by something non-human or a negative human spirit that just wanted to control over not only the spirits there with him or it, but to the living as well. And I usually find that when you clear a home and you're giving an opportunity for these human spirits, these ghosts, to cross over, the entity behind, whether it is a negative human entity or it is a demonic human entity, does not have that control anymore. So in a sense, by anybody getting rid of spirits from the home, you're taking back your home. You're not giving the human or negative inhuman any power over you.
Well, let me ask you this before I go across the Atlantic pond. You mentioned human or non-human, and that's something that goes back to the beginning of the show. That was something posed for Kevin that we didn't get to, but this is actually to both of you. What about ET souls, extraterrestrials? Have you seen anything that's non-human but is not physical? We're talking, like a dead alien, maybe from a crash or something.
Sure. Johnny can answer the seeing part. But, one of the questions people have had is about, when you look at the old books, the old biblical books that, whether they've been pulled out of the canon or not, many of them have been. They talk about giants of old and other things.
Yes.
And they talk about fallen angels basically doing genetic experiments, perverting God's creation. Now, so people sometimes wonder, well, define a demon. What is a demon? You know, can it be? Is it just a fallen angel, or is it also these things like these Nephilim?
Nephilim, yeah, that's right.
Dead Nephilim. If a Nephilim dies, I mean, in the physical world, then you know, there's so many different kind of entities out there. To be honest, I mean, I think now to me, when we're talking about demons, we're generally talking about fallen angels. Okay, the ones that were kicked out of heaven by God. We're not generally referring to their creations, or or perversions, I should say. But it's not to say that a homeowner couldn't have a home and then have a spirit of a Nephilim come in, or of a reptilian or something. And then we'll hear these reports, like I actually saw it one night and it had scales and it looked like a reptile, or, they'll describe what it looks like. And it's like, wow, that does seem kind of, the entity you're describing, again,
non-human.
Non-human, for sure.
Johnny, what do you got in London?
Well, it's not in London, actually. Our last question comes from Suleiman in Daliman in Turkey, and he wants to know, he says, I know it can be haunting and distracting being live on the airways, but have Jennifer and Keith received any messages here tonight to tell the world?
It's to both of you. Whoever wants to go first.
I would say that this one, I would say that the world is where what's coming about are going to be monumental times, and I always ask everybody to pray for the greater good, for humanity.
This is a very tumultuous time, that's for sure.
Right, and if this is truly one of them times where it's going to be good against evil, then the greater good can use all the help it can get. There is power in prayer. We are mind, body, and soul. That's like, hey, that's like a third of that is spirit. I believe we are spirits having a human existence, opposed to humans having a spiritual experience. So praying is one thing that no one can ever take away from us, and it's the one thing that makes a difference. I believe it makes a difference. I've seen it make a difference. So that's what I would say.
Jennifer?
What I would like to say is, it's like you and Kevin were just talking. It's really, really tumultuous times right now. And there needs to be more togetherness, more unity, less
selfishness, right?
Division. Come together more. Stand up together more. Instead of taking shots at each other and trying to destroy each other.
Separate each other, yeah, that's right, and it's a revolving thing in history, because it's almost as if we never learn. You go back. I said this last night. I said this a week ago. The earliest skeletons, you got spears in them. So we've been having nonstop wars and murder that just keep going on in one shape or form or another, and genocides. And you're right. That's one thing that we're lacking, is as times go on, you would think that we would get together, especially, Kevin, I know you could probably attest to this, as other people would say, like Dr. Greer would talk about, the others were waiting for us to join a galactic federation. You would have to be one before you could do something like that.
Right, but I guess, exactly. Like, are we ready to take our table at the, with the other intelligent species out there, kind of thing?
Or are we going to bring our bad stuff? It just makes sense that's why. If you're out in the outside looking into Earth, I would think that you don't want anything to do with it. It's that bad.
There's things going on here that we don't know about, and there's things going on here that we're not being told about, and that's the problem. So we really don't know what the score is. We don't know what game we're even in.
That's right. Very good point to make.
So, like, if and I look at yin and yang, good and bad, and you wonder, why is it that good wins in the end if it's 50-50? And I have to say that it's because in the end, evil turns on itself. And in the end, good enjoys strength and unity. And I think that's why good prevails over evil in the long run. You know, when you get these times where it seems like there's like, you know, a good evil thing going on, you know, being influenced by all kinds of things that we probably, you know, some of which we know about, some of which we may not know about yet. But I think there's more at play than going. I certainly think there's more at play going on this planet than just the human race.
Of course, you know, that's why I'm actually going to, you know, since we went a little over time, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about what you do in a final statement for both of you, but I want to focus on you first, Kevin. You research not just ghosts, not just UFOs, you research everything paranormal. So all of that falls under the veil, and Robert Morningstar says there's not a lot of conspiracies going on, it's just one big lie with everything connected.
Yep. That's a good way to put it. You know, with the 7 categories that we cover, when you step back, you can see how they all are intertwined and how they all connect. And I can literally take any 2 categories, put them together, and give you a connection point. And they really are. I like the way you just put that, because it is. It's one large conspiracy with a bunch of arms on it. And you know, the awakening is a real thing. I'm glad for that. That's hope. That's good. In fact, we've interviewed hundreds of paranormal professionals in all 7 of them categories. And one question we ask all of them is, do you think there's an awakening going on? And so far, every single one has said yes. More people are waking up. More people are believing that more people are becoming spiritual. More people are open to the idea we need to think outside the box. More people realize that there's more going on than what we're given in school.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and as long as that continues, that's hope for us.
And we're going to continue to grow.
Right. You know, 10 years ago, this conversation may have been a little more difficult. 20 years ago, there was only, a lot of these things were taboo.
Very taboo. That's right. For decades, real decades. You know.
Right. So the fact that the pendulum's starting to swing the other way is a good thing.
I definitely agree with that. You know, this would have been censored for mainstream networks years ago, and now you could go to History Channel or National Geographic and watch a show that doesn't include skeptics countering everything that's being said. So I think times are changing for that. Now, let me ask Jennifer if she's got any final thoughts before I ask you, Kevin, to plug in some your important stuff, your radio show, of course, this restoration project and everything else. So Jennifer, if you have anything you'd like to say to everybody, final statement, what would you say to both people that can hear it alive, maybe to people, obviously to an international audience, people that are also skeptics, and if people can hear on the other side, what would you say to everybody and anything?
You know, it's like I started saying before, more unity, more strength, more togetherness, you know. Be true to yourself. Speak your truths. Don't let people walk all over you. You know, we're going through a time right now, like Kevin was just saying, with this awakening, it's not only on one level, it's on many levels, including, you know, the spiritual level. And, you know, people that are openly sensitive versus you may have people that are not openly sensitive. You know, they say now that as every year goes by, the veil is constantly thinning. You know, it might get to a point where everyone's going to be open to seeing things that they're normally not. And that could actually be one heck of a paradigm shifter.
Yes.
That will change your perspective. Me being a medium like I am, I have experienced the good, the not so good, and I've experienced the really, really bad. And for anybody out there that may have abilities and you don't think that you're good enough, well, I have news for you. You're good enough. Just because you didn't get in contact with your mother today doesn't mean it's not going to happen tomorrow or a week from now. So just keep plugging along and doing what you're doing, and at some point, spiritually, with your gifts, you'll get to where you need to be.
Hope, essentially hope. So we keep on to that hope that we will continue to grow and it'll manifest. Essentially.
Yes.
Now, Kevin, let's talk about your radio show, your Summerwind Restoration Project, and everything else that you'd like to.
Excuse me. Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Dr. J, and your crew for having us on. And I got to say, we've gotten more questions from around the globe than I think we've gotten on the last 50 interviews we've done. I mean, so that hats off to you on that. Really well-rounded, lots of people. Thank you all for your questions and calls. That's just awesome.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
The show's, first of all, we have a Friday night show. Jennifer and I host it. It's called Paraversal Universe. It's on the Paranormal King Radio Network every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I believe it's Saturday morning, 1 a.m. Grand
GMT.
Meridian time.
Right.
Yeah. And we cover all 7 categories of the unknown and unexplained. Of course, we have our like pages, Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited. We have Jennifer Celsi, Physical Psychic Medium and Demonologist. That's her page. We have, let's see, the Summerwind Restoration Society is a project that we have been involved with along with the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters. And that is, they're trying to rebuild Summerwind to the original blueprints. And so there's a restoration effort going on there. We would love to see the place turn into a bed and breakfast. We think it'd be good for the community and good for the location, actually. And so we're involved with that. We have a whole slew of we have a Paraversal Universe like page. We have an archive page for Paraversal Universe.
Paracryptozoology.
Lake monstrosities.
Parasociology.
Parasociology. Then we're all like pages that we're involved with. And of course we write for Supernatural Magazine too, so check them guys out. And I know I'm going to forget something.
Well, nonetheless, if you think of it while I'm still saying anything to you or closing out the show, let me know. And of course, everything you've said will be written, of course, when this is archived in the description. And I want to thank you guys, of course.
Can I one more thing?
Sure.
I forgot. I knew I was going to forget something, and she's like, you know, how could you forget this one? The UFO Wisconsin Research Team. That's a team here in Wisconsin I'm involved with. Ufologists.
You connected with MUFON?
The members of UFO Wisconsin Research Team, all except for 2 of them have been with MUFON at one time or another.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be with MUFON. We are no longer with MUFON. We are, for us in our society, the Wisconsin UFO Research Team was more compatible. But MUFON's a great organization, and there's a lot of awesome people working there, for sure. So, and if anyone has an interest in ufology, and MUFON's a good place to go to learn a lot of things about ufology. So, the certification I got through them was, pretty cool.
Yeah, the training, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, there's a huge manual. It's like a college. Really, it's like a college course, but I studied that manual for a year before I took the test.
Wow.
There's a lot of stuff in there, but you work hard and you study and you pass. You pass the test, you pass the background check, and then you're associated with a good network that will keep you busy.
Well, that being said, I want to thank, of course, you, Kevin Malek, and Jennifer Selsey for joining us tonight. I also definitely want to thank the rest of our team. Johnny for staying up so late in the United Kingdom. Also, don't forget Dan, who takes care of our chats, and that'll be fixed soon, centralized, rather than using all the social media, which we will still continue to monitor for all you global participants. And don't forget that this is truly an international show. You can hear it right here on our network. Of course, you could also replays on PSN Radio Network, Late Night in the Midlands, as well as Deep Program Radio Network based in the United Kingdom, not to mention all the terrestrial stations that carry this show. And of course, the most important people that need to be thanked are you, the listeners. Must thank you guys for joining us tonight. As always, don't forget that the one and only thing you need to remember is Dr. J Radio Live. Everything is Dr. J Radio Live. Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr, YouTube, Google+, Gmail, website. Whatever account you could think of, you can be sure that it's under that one name, which is the name of the show, Dr. J Radio Live. With that being said, I'm Dr. J, and we are officially signing off.